You can't manifest your desired reality because unfortunately you're falling for the 7 deadly sins. Now, all sins are born from the 7 deadly sins. And specifically, when we look at sin in an esoteric context, it makes complete sense why each time that you sin, you are actually creating a gap in between your ability to materialize your desired reality. Manifestation, quite simply, as I define it, is internally shifting to a degree to which you're no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. And the moment that you begin to do that, that is when your reality begins to alter, because manifestation isn't creation, it's actually revelation. You're taking what's invisible and simply making it visible. All particular frequencies, parallel universes, conditions, and circumstances exist within you. But each and every time that you sin, which I'm going to break down the true esoteric and etymological origins for the word sin, you actually create a gap in between you and your desired reality without even realizing it. And in this video, I will be covering each of the 7 deadly sins and how each of them play a part in the gap between your ability to materialize your desired reality and how to alter your sins so you don't keep making the same mistakes.
For the longest time, I thought your channel was called Negro Knowledge. And to be honest, it still fits.
That's crazy. That is crazy. That's wow. That's insane. That is insane. Yeah, mad thing star.
I'm surprised no one's made a spin-off.
Oh, whoops. Huh?
Oh,
Okay. My thing got stuck. You gotta be careful.
what thing?
Come on, bro. My eraser?
Oh,
Sick, man.
I just need people to be more specific.
Right. Okay. So, like I said, before getting into the 7 deadly sins, it's important why you come to the true understanding as to why sin is in direct contradiction to your ability to materialize your desired reality. So the first things first, unfortunately, you keep operating within the confinements from the perspective, from the frequency and the awareness of a human being without coming to the understanding that to be a human being is to be confined within the physical plane. The physical plane is a realm of the illusion, which means you're confining yourself to a particular degree of limitation. So long as you keep thinking like a human instead of a universe or a god, you'll be confined to the experiences of a human being. Now, as I said, if we see the human perspective or the human level of awareness or human frequency as a particular form of low awareness or low level of awareness, that low level of awareness means that you don't have the capability of understanding the true nature of reality, which means you're confined to the things that you experience, and the things that you experience or you call truth. In other words, reality is an illusion. An illusion is another way of saying a trap, which quite simply is limitation. And it's interesting because religions have capitalized and manipulated and exploited the concept of original sin, even though that's not, it's a conversation for another day. But in a sense, humans are prone to sin. But like I said, the typical definition of sin isn't applicable within the realm of the esoteric. How in the esoteric we define sin is misalignment. Misalignment to what? Misalignment to God, also known as the infinite intelligence. That is the esoteric definition of sin. Now, if you look at the word sin in the Greek and Hebrew, etymologically speaking, sin derives from a term associated with archery, which means to miss the mark. Now, scholars debate on this, but for the purpose of this video, let's just say it means to miss the mark, to miss the target. And if you don't miss the mark and the target being God, you are misaligned. Misalignment of the infinite intelligence or God results in suffering. Now, the funny thing, or the unfortunate thing I should say, about human beings is that the more that we are misaligned to the infinite intelligence, the more we descend into limitation. Now, the act of materializing your desired reality itself requires for you to go beyond limitation, requires for you to transcend illusion. Because the truth of the matter is, it's not you who creates reality or alters your reality. It's the aspect of infinite within. It's the God within that does that. And so long as you don't have the ability to tap into that God within to recreate or restructure your desired reality, you'll be stuck within the confinement of operating as a human being, which unfortunately ultimately ends up in a particular degree of limitation one way or another. Now, as I said, sin is to be misaligned to the infinite intelligence. The more that you are aligned to the infinite intelligence, the more you're able to draw from the power of God or the infinite intelligence, which means the more likely you are to materialize your desired reality. Hence why, if you keep sinning, you keep misaligning yourself to the infinite intelligence, which means you're aligning yourself to the human intelligence, and we can just say, which is finite intelligence. Finite itself is another way or a variation of saying limited. So to sin isn't necessarily about not making some God who sat in the sky, which is nothing more than the personification of the ego and anthropomorphization of human in attempt to define God, which ironically, the moment that we attempt to define God, we confine God. All religions will argue that we can't define God because God is infinite, yet they will come and proclaim that they have the absolute, unadulterated, undisputable truth of God, which is nothing more than, egotistic games. But once you begin to look at sin outside of this, how do I say this, game of manipulation of you can't do this, and if you do this, then this means this, and if you do this, you don't get this. The true definition of sinning, as I said, is misalignment to the infinite intelligence. Etymologically, if you're looking at the word sin in Hebrew or in Greek, it's a reference to an archery term, which means to miss the mark of God, also known as the infinite intelligence. And to miss the mark is any time that we identify with humanity or our human side of ourselves, which is nothing more than, instead of infinite intelligence, it is finite intelligence, which is limitation, which results in a low level of awareness. And low level of awareness is an alternative way of saying a lower frequency. When I say frequency, I'm not referring to your inability to eat smoothies and touch grass with your feet and shit like that. I'm referring to frequency in of itself being a signature which is expressed in humanity as our level of awareness. Our level of awareness is the lens through which we see our lives through. And if you see the world around you from a point of a low awareness, then you're limited. I hope that makes sense. AJ, did that make sense?
I'm going through the comments from.
Okay, so he's not even paying attention. Well, I know that you're smart enough for it to make sense too. Now we can actually get, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to them. And now we can get to the 7 deadly sins, ladies and gentlemen.
I was about to say that's the first time Nero's been nice to me.
Why? What type of nonsense is that?
Because, guys, off camera, it's nothing but pure hatred and abuse.
Wow. You better keep playing that piano quietly.
Let's see.
Since you're going through the comments, anything interesting?
Just lots of glaze.
Okay.
And that's okay, though.
People can't even compliment people these days, huh?
Someone said, Nero, come to Jamaica, bro. Live a little and cook fried fish and oxtail with curry goat.
Oh, oxtail. What a meal. What a meal.
Oxtail's overrated, but
no, it's not overrated.
It's over.
And what's better than oxtail?
Curry goat. 100%.
Absolutely.
In fact, curry mutton.
Absolute nonsense.
My God,
absolute nonsense.
So good, bro.
Absolute nonsense. Oxtail's undefeated.
The flavor is melting on my tongue.
I see niggas put oxtail on pizza.
I'll see it. I need to try that stuff. Nah, that's pure greed.
What colors do I have? Red, black. Okay. Actually, let's start with the red. The first 7 deadly sin that misaligns you. Bear in mind, all the 7 deadly sins are things that you already do. And if you don't come to awareness of what you already do, you're going to be unconscious to what you do. And if you're unconscious to what you do, that means you're unconscious to the frequency and the state of consciousness that you hold. And if you're unaware of the state of consciousness and the frequency that you're emanating to the universe, you will be unaware as to why things show up in your reality. So it's important that you are able to go through each of one of these sins with me and identify the ones that you are already doing and begin to alter them, because that's what we're going to be doing. So make sure you take them notes and make sure to leave them in the comments as usual. Now, the first deadly sin, pride. Pride. Now, bear in mind, these are all esoteric metaphysical interpretations and perspectives on the 7 deadly sins, right? So it's not going to be your standard, whatever niggas say. Now, pride. In the esoteric conceptualization of pride, pride is what we conceptualize as spiritual arrogance and separation from the infinite. Now, ironically, esoterically, in Matthew 19:26, this is what Jesus was referring to when he said, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And to be prideful in the esoteric conceptualization is for you to come to the understanding of something that you might not already be aware of, which is you can't do shit. You can't create your reality. You can't alter your reality. You can't bend the forces of the universe. You can't do any of that. Who does it is God, the infinite within. Now, you have to come to understanding that a lot of people don't come to, which is more important than materialization or manifestation itself, is the belief that you have around manifestation itself. Manifestation is, for most people, is creation. And creation is tied to your ability and your confidence in yourself as a creator in your day-to-day life. Now, what do I mean by this? A lot of people, most of us, don't think we're capable of creating things due to a low lack of self-worth, due to a low self-perception, due to a low level of confidence that we have in ourselves. We don't actually believe or trust ourselves to do the things that we need to. And bear in mind, you can run around and say, but I know the truth, nigga, because we're all the same. Deep down, most of us are very much insecure. Most of us have low self-confidence and low self-worth. So the idea of creating is too big. It's too big for our mind to conceptualize. So then when somebody says to you, you can create your reality, you attempt to do it without the awareness that unconsciously you don't believe you can create anything anyways. You don't have confidence in yourself. You don't have a high degree of self-worth. So then that leads to you not being able to create. And when I say you, I'm specifically referring to your ego. When I say ego, I'm not talking about an unpleasant characteristic. I'm talking about your physical vessel, or let's say your physical avatar. And ironically, your avatar is confined to the physical plane. And because your avatar is confined to the physical plane, it is confined to illusion. And because it's confined to illusion, it doesn't have the ability to create. Hence why the esoteric phrase, which is said all the time, but nobody gets it: let go and let God. Let go of the ego's desire and its false thinking that it can do things, that it can materialize reality. It can't do nothing. You need to let go, relinquish the ego, give up the left hemisphere of your brain, or the aspect of you that's associated with limitation, the logic, the rationale. How's it going to happen? How am I going to do this? When's it going to happen? When's it going to come through? Which, bear in mind, manifestation is internally shifting to a degree to which you're no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. So those questions are all opposed to that. But spiritual arrogance, in a sense that your ego can create, because it can't, because it's confined to limitation. Pride is to be spiritually arrogant and to think that your ego can create in its separation from the infinite. Hence why Christ said, "It is not I who doeth the things, but the Father in me. It is not I who doeth the things, but the Father in me, within me." It's your identification with your ego that aligns you with limitation. What you need to do is to begin to align yourself with the infinite. or the God within? Because as Jesus said, with men, the ego, this is impossible. But with God, the infinite, all things are possible. Esoterically, to be prideful is to be spiritually arrogant. When you're spiritually arrogant, you're operating from a particular degree of separation. Separation, which means identification with the ego. Identification with the ego puts you into polarity, which means you see yourself separate from those around you. You see yourself separate from your fellow human beings. You see yourself separate from the people that you hate the most. You see yourself separate from the people you love the most. You see yourself separate from the people that you want to become like the most. And if you have separation in one aspect of your life, chances are, due to the fact that there's nothing compartmentalized in the mind, which is what Severance shows you, this TV show, nothing's compartmentalized in the mind, you end up separating yourself from the infinite. And when you separate yourself from the infinite, you separate yourself from the power of the infinite, which can let go and let God. The truth of the matter is you can doubt yourself, but the truth of the matter is it sounds silly for us to say doubt God, because we know that God is all powerful. We know that God is infinite, but your conceptualization of God as a particular deity in the sky is what your separation from God is. As Corinthians says, you are the dwelling place of the temple of God. Wherever you go, God goes. And it's your ability to align and identify with that portion of God and to know that God is the one that is doing things, the God within. So when you have a particular desired reality, there should be no self-doubt. If you have self-doubt with a desired reality, then that means you're operating from the ego, which means you're operating from limitation, because the God within doubts nothing. It knows everything. And that's a bar, write that down. This is pride. Let's move on to the next one. Bear in mind, like I said, all of these 7 deadly sins are things that you already do. So you should be calling yourself out and catching yourself out in some aspects as you're listening to me saying the things that I'm saying here. Stay with me now. Relax, you're gonna get some.
I didn't know Trey Songz had allegations on him.
How the hell do you know that?
You haven't heard about it?
Bro, you know I'm not in the loop, man.
Yeah, same old allegations, you know. Old school R&B artists doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Damn. Girl, I can't help but wait.
And then he's got that clip.
Call me.
He's got that clip talking about, if I came into your room at night.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that one's long star. Somebody was like to me, oh, when you guys say long day in the UK, what does that mean? I don't know how to describe that. It's just long, innit?
Long day.
Long.
Tired. Loud.
Long day. Like those allegations, long day. Long. This should be okay. So, next one, envy. Most of us experience this, especially due to social media, due to the fact that, you know, the world has become way more interconnected due to globalization, and we can quite literally see practically everything about other people's lives, you know, envy. And plus, it's just one of the natural human natures. All of these 7 deadly sins are just aspects of your lower self. So when you think about it really and truly, what you're conquering through conquering the 7 deadly sins is that you're conquering a lower aspect of yourself, which then sets space and creates space for your God self to step in and alter your reality to the way that you need to. Because one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about pride is that, like I said, the ego can't materialize realities. The God within that must materialize the desired reality. And so long the ego is present, and I don't mean that in a sense of kill your ego, because the ego is a vehicle, but so long as you're operating from the confinements and identification with your ego, you won't be able to identify with the aspect of you that can actually alter your reality. Now, envy is a very interesting one, because envy, to be envious, is to see typically the success or what others have as a reinforcement of scarcity? Esoterically, that's what envy is showing. You see the success of others or what others have, whether it's love, whether it's they're either making a certain amount of money in their business, somebody's in the career position that you want to be in, somebody may have a career and you don't, somebody may have the grades you want, somebody may have the body you want, some people may have the whatever it is. The issue with envy is that esoterically, you're seeing the success of others as a reinforcement of scarcity. Now, there's two mistakes that are being committed when we're talking about envy. One of them is that you're seeing what others have as a reinforcement of your scarcity, which means if, as I always say to you, you can only have what you already have. Bear in mind, when I say that, people are confused, but let me explain it. Your definition of having as a human being means fuck all to the universe. Hence why I said you need to stop thinking like a human being and think in accordance to the universe. The human definition of being, the human definition of having is to be able to physically hold something or experience something. The physical plane is the realm of the illusion, so why would the universe rate it? The universe doesn't rate an illusion. It doesn't respect it. It doesn't register it. So anything that we have in humanity is nothing more than an illusion of what's being given to us. The universal definition of what it means to have is vibratory alignment. And vibratory alignment comes through what you are declaring yourself to be, so declaration. If you can only have what you already have, if you're seeing scarcity in your world, then the universe will interpret the vibratory alignment of you declaring scarcity. The state, a combination of mental and emotional states, more emotional, because emotion is the largest shareholder of your frequency, due to the fact that emotion is energy in motion, which becomes vibration, which becomes frequency, which becomes reality. Each time that you see somebody and you feel envious, this is an indication that you are seeing what they have as a reinforcement of what you don't have. And if you can only have what you don't have, guess what is going to be created and reflected? More scarcity. If you have scarcity within from a point of mental and emotional declaration, then that is going to lead to the universe interpreting what you have as scarcity, which means that you're going to create scarcity. So ironically, you being envious of others is actually what keeps you in a perpetual cycle of not having, because you're seeing what they have as a reinforcement of what you don't have. And if you don't have, then you can only have what you have, which is nothing, which means that you're perpetually created to have nothing. And the other side of envy is that you're seeing yourself as separate, which taps into the first one that I just mentioned, which is pride. You're seeing yourself separate from everybody else without coming to the recognition that there's only one consciousness in this entire universe, vibrating at different rates. Each particular human being that you see is the one consciousness of God that is within you, simply vibrating at different rates with different physical expressions. You're seeing yourself as separate from somebody without coming to realize that that person is just a version of you, expressed physically differently. So what you should be doing is seeing the success and what others have as a reinforcement, not of scarcity, but of what you have, because they are you. And through that recognition that those people that you desire to be like are a version of you, their success and what they have should be an affirmation of what you have. Because ironically, when I say have, your mind is still thinking, but I don't have it though. You're thinking by the humanistic definition of what it means to have. The universe's definition of having is vibratory alignment, which is a declaration of your mental and emotional state. So if you see somebody with something that you like and you see that as an affirmation of happiness and you're happy for that person, the happiness that you're experiencing is going to be aligned to whatever is being projected from. So if you see somebody in a career that you want, with a relationship that a type of relationship you want, hopefully you don't want other people's man or girls or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I ain't judging though. Like I said, spirituality without the ability to control your reality is vanity. I'm not attempting to moralize you niggas. I actually just want you guys to be able to materialize whatever it is that you want. So like I said, if you see what somebody has, instead of seeing it as a reinforcement of what you don't have, see it as an affirmation of what a version of you has. And once you see it as that person is me, I have that, then you begin mentally declaring that you have that. And when you begin to feel the emotions of happiness, gratitude, joy for that person, then that's when you step into declaration, which is a mental and emotional combination. And then that sets emotion for you to be aligned to that very thing that you're looking at.
Yep.
So when I say gratitude for what you have, the you that I'm talking about is you and others. Because the moment that you do that, the more you begin aligning to whatever it is that you desire. Ooh.
Finally, someone agrees with me. I'm with AJ on this one. The Flash and Spider-Man are the best superheroes.
Yeah, hang it up. The Flash couldn't even beat Daredevil.
Fake.
Did you watch Daredevil season 1?
Nah.
You need to watch it. Like, I wasn't a fan of all of those Marvel like TV spin-offs.
Sounds so dead.
Like Luke Cage, Black Lightning. Nah, Black Lightning was the worst.
Shout out Black Lightning.
Black Lightning was the worst. Tobias, was that his name? Tobias,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
villain.
yeah.
He made it live. Punisher, the Punisher, Daredevil. Oh, what was that one? Oh, with Madam Wu. Oh, what was that one? Iron Fist. You didn't watch it. You see, you're not a Marvel guy, man.
I'm not.
And I even watched the Winter Soldier and the Falcon series. Captain America Winter Soldier is still the best film ever made in the Marvel series. And if you're thinking about arguing with me, don't even argue. Argue with yourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. Cool. Oh, in fact, I use red for this one. The next 7 deadly sin. Wrath.
I think you said Bruss.
Esoterically, the way that we interpret wrath is a particular degree of emotional turbulence. Now, this is so crazy because there's an anime called 7 Deadly Sins. They killed that anime. I love season 1. And if you watch an anime called Full Metal Alchemist, they have the 7 Deadly Sins through the homunculus people, which is so cold. But nerding aside, wrath is emotional turbulence, fury, a loss of control. Think about this. Understand it like this. Emotional turbulence, if you understand what emotion is energy emotion. Energy emotion emits a signature that we call a vibration. When that vibration compounds, it becomes a frequency. Frequency is nothing more than immaterialized reality. So, if I can make you emotionally turbulent, I can control your energy emotion. If I can control your energy emotion, I can control your vibration. If I can control your vibration, I can control your frequency. If I can control your frequency, I can control your reality. Hence the ancient saying, he who makes you mad is your master. Quite literally a master of your reality. Because the thing about wrath is that a particular degree of emotional turbulence is an indication of a lack of discipline internally. And if you have a lack of discipline internally, that lack of discipline is going to be exploited and you're going to be able to be swayed in the direction of whatever it is that's triggering you. Whether it's a person, whether it's an old frequency, whether it's adversity. That means you're granting something the ability to alter you internally. And anything that can alter you internally will then eventually, due to the fact that as within, as without, on earth as it is in heaven, it will lead to the creation of whatever direction you were swayed to being expressed through what we call reality. So emotional turbulence really and truly is a particular degree of emotional weakness. But when I say weakness, I mean weakness in your ability to ground yourself. And to be emotionally turbulent means a couple of things. But the main thing that it means to be emotionally turbulent is, how do I say this? See, like I said, I gotta pretend like I'm thinking about things so you guys don't think I'm a robot. What did the guy say? A cyborg?
Yeah.
Cyborg or a reptilian or whatever you guys think I am. How do I say this? You need to be... This is perfect. You need to be internally independent to reality. And the only way you can do that is through transcending the cause of your emotional turbulence, which is falling into polarity. Once you fall into polarity and you begin to see things as separate, positive, negative, good, bad, terrible, good. The moment you do that, the moment you begin to label reality, and labels always means attributing meaning to things, and meaning is always synonymous with emotion. When you begin to label your reality with a particular degree of emotion, then you end up falling for each and every single time that the universe begins to press those set of buttons. You need to transcend polarity and see everything through the same and neutral. Hence why Krishna said the wise are the same in pleasure and in pain. But the issue is, if you're not the same in pleasure and pain, if in pleasure you're in pleasure, then that means to the same degree of the energetic polarity of pleasure, you can experience the opposite, which would mean if when things are good, you're good. When things are bad, how the fuck are you gonna be? You're gonna be bad. But you need to be calm in good and calm in bad, because that shows you've transcended polarity and you've placed yourself above illusion. So long as you're under illusion, you're identifying and operating from your ego, which means that you're confined to the limitations of the ego. So to be wrathful is to have a particular degree of emotional turbulence. To have emotional turbulence is to have a lack of internal discipline. A lack of internal discipline, how the hell can you expect to discipline reality if you can't discipline yourself? And that's a bar that down, because there is no reality and there is no you. You and reality are one entity. So your inability to discipline yourself will then lead to an inability to have a reality that is disciplined to you. How the fuck can you expect the universe to listen to you if you can't listen to yourself? How the fuck can you expect the universe to follow what you want it to do when you can't even follow what you want to do? Because emotional turbulence shows weakness internally, because whoever can control your emotions or anything, and bear in mind, this doesn't have to be a person, this could be a condition of reality. You could be struggling or not in a reality you want, but if you're giving that reality power over you instead of seeing it neutrally, because until you see it neutrally, it will continue to have power over you. When you begin to see things neutrally, you almost become, how do I say this? You become strange to people. You understand what I mean? Like, I have clients who, when they achieve big things, you know, everybody else around them is so happy and so gassed, but to them it's just like, it's nothing. Which sounds bad, but what that shows is a relinquishing of dependency upon reality, because you need to be internally independent to reality. Because when you're internally independent to reality, this aligns you with the definition of what I gave you earlier for manifestation, which is internally shifting to a degree to which you are no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. Because if you're emotionally dependent upon reality, reality will take you to the heights of heaven, but due to the fact that for every force there's an equal and opposite force, it will take you down to the depths of hell. You need to make yourself internally independent to your old frequency. Go watch my video on the old frequency and what it will do, because it will attempt to sway you emotionally. Because emotional turbulence is another way of saying emotionally reacting. And to react is to allow the external to alter the internal. And if the external can alter the internal has to produce at some point an external, which means the external will be based upon whatever was able to make you react. Instead, you need to respond. And the only way you can respond, which is to go from the internal and then approach the external, is to frame things from, how would the version of me respond to this situation? How would the version of me respond to this parking ticket? How would the version of me respond to this disappointment, this failure, me not getting what I want? How would the version of me respond? And then doing that. Because as I said, so long as you're emotionally turbulent on reality, then that means anything or anyone or any condition or any circumstance can control your energy emotion. If they can control your energy emotion, they can control your vibration. If they can control your vibration, they can control your frequency. And if they can control your frequency, they can control your reality. Bear in mind, one thing that I want to make abundantly clear is that this is not an encouragement for toxic positivity. You should always be aware of the emotions that you're experiencing and process those emotions. But the only way those emotions are going to be solved is if you allow yourself to feel them. But feeling them doesn't mean acting on them, which is what emotional turbulence is a reflection of. It's feeling them and then allowing your awareness to naturally deal with them, because it will happen, I promise you. even if it doesn't look like that. You can't resist any aspect of yourself. What you resist persists. You can't act like you don't feel the way that you do. That's not what this is. It's a high level of awareness of understanding what this reaction will lead to. If I react like this, what will it lead to? It's not emotionally numbing, it's emotionally disciplining by not acting or allowing yourself to be thrown or be given a lens that whatever is making you emotionally turbulent wants you to experience.
Started watching Nero in a one-bed $500 apartment. Now I'm learning from Nero in a 5-bedroom multi-million-dollar house.
Oh, swear down, you got a room. Is that the comment?
I don't know how true that is, but do you think?
I can't imagine people would have a reason to come here and lie. Congratulations, that's lovely. Asia, we're building accommodations all over the world, mate. Orange? I haven't used orange, have I?
No.
Cool. Sloth. Oh, even in the anime Re:Zero, the 7 deadly sins are also there. There's 7 deadly sins, Re:Zero, and Full Metal Alchemist. 7 deadly sins. So from an esoteric standpoint, the way that we interpret sloth in humanity, I believe is interpreted as laziness. Hence why you see sloths, they're all like lazy. But if we're looking at sloth metaphysically, then what you have to understand is sloth is a stagnation of energy. Why do I not do what I know I need to do even though I know I need to do it? It's a stagnation of energy. A stagnation of energy leads to what we call procrastination. Why do I procrastinate? Because there's a stagnation. Procrastination. Wait, hold on. The fuck? Procrastination. Stagnation of energy leads to what we call procrastination. Did I spell it right? I see the way you're looking at the spelling. You got something to say?
I'm probably not even the best at spelling procrastination either, bro. Allow it. I was looking at what you crossed out.
Procrastination, metaphysically, is a stagnation of energy. So anytime you're procrastinating, what you're experiencing without realizing is a stagnation of energy. Stagnation of what, Nero? Procrastination takes place when you are attempting to take an action that is contradictory to your state of consciousness. I feel like I spelled contradictory wrong, but who gives a fuck? But anytime that we procrastinate as human beings, we're experiencing a stagnation of energy. A stagnation of energy arises when the action that we're attempting to take or the action we desire to take is in contradiction to our state of consciousness or our frequency. I'll give you an example. Why would you procrastinate about going to the gym when you want to go to the gym and you know you need to go to the gym? It's because the state of consciousness or the frequency that you're operating at is one of a lack of fitness. You're unfit, frequency-wise, mentally and emotionally unfit. Hence why taking the action, you procrastinate because the energy is stagnant. The energy is trying to flow, but it can't because the action is in direct contradiction to the state of consciousness or the frequency that you're operating at. And this can be extrapolated to a multitude of different things. And so long as you allow energy to stagnate, then you don't allow that energy to flow. And energy must flow. It must flow. If it stagnates, then that's how, as human beings, we lead to experiencing inflammation. It's a stagnation of energy or blood cells not being able to move freely, so it begins to inflame in one particular area. Now, the way that you overcome sloth is, how do I say this? productive execution. Now, here's the thing. Spiritual niggas will tell you that you don't need to take any action at all. That's lies. Because unfortunately, you are confined to a physical plane, which means you are reliant on action. Now, one thing I do agree is that you don't need to take hard work. It doesn't need to be hard. The idea, even for example, that, you know, in order to make money, you need to work hard. It's actually that belief that limits you to a frequency of experiencing hard work in order to earn money. And anytime that you aren't doing hard work, you end up not getting money, not because hard work equates to money, but simply because you believe it to be so, due to the fact that there are no truths in reality other than what the subconscious mind accepts as true. And it's the same thing here. When we're talking about being sloth, it's a stagnation of energy. When I say a stagnation of energy, the energy that I'm specifically referring to is frequency. So if you aren't executing the frequency that you're attempting to materialize, how the fuck can you ever expect it to materialize? Because it's physical action that midwives and facilitates frequency to materialize into reality. And that's a bar, write that down. I'll say it again. It's physical action that facilitates and midwives frequency to materialize into reality, because frequency is nothing more than immaterialized reality, and reality is materialized frequency. But here's the thing, if you aren't execute, you could do all this work, getting into the right state of consciousness, go watch my other videos, and making sure that your frequency is aligned to the reality that you want to experience. But if you aren't executing upon that frequency, how could you ever expect it to be facilitated and midwifed into reality? Because I'll show you something. Frequency, intuition, mental nudges, action, reality. The reality we're in is based upon the actions we've taken. The actions we've taken are based upon the mental nudges that we experience. The mental nudges we experience is based upon intuition. Intuition is comprised of two words: inner tuition, inner teaching, inner guidance. Your inner teaching and inner guidance is always going to be a direct reflection of the frequency you've calibrated to. Let's say you're calibrated to the frequency of your desired reality, and you already are, because remember, you can only have what you already have. If you want to become something, you first must be it. So if you want more money in your business, you must be more money in your business. If you want that career, you must be that career before the world proves it to you. If you want that promotion, you need to be that promotion before the world proves it to you. If you want to be in a healthy, loving relationship, then you must be in love, in a healthy relationship internally. If you do that, then that means your frequency will be reflective of your desired reality. Your intuition that you receive will come from the frequency that will nudge you to take the steps to get closer to that reality. The mental nudges that you are told to do should reflect your intuition. But if you are slothful and you don't take action, then you kill the step right here and you don't take action, which means you create a block here, which then ends up creating a gap in between you and your desired reality. You must begin to execute upon the moment, and understand this. More important than action is right action. Right action is preceded from the right frequency. So frequency first, action after. Frequency first, action after. Say it with me. Frequency first, action after. And it must always be in that order. That's the only way you're going to take the right action or know what action to take. But if you are in frequency first, action after, but you're not executing upon action after, then you're just in the right frequency all the time. Action is what facilitates and midwives the energy or the frequency to materialize into reality. So you must become a productive executor upon intuition and begin taking action. And if you're struggling to take action, then that's the indication that the first thing that has to be aligned is your state of consciousness or your frequency. By the time you guys are seeing this video, the book should very well be done. And when I say done, I mean like the bulk of it has been written.
I thought you meant it's going to be shipped out.
No. Basically, I just literally just mentally exploded, pause, like onto Word document. And now I just kind of want to like refine it. Because I want to make sure that this book, like somebody can pick up this book, know exactly what to do. The book, each chapter is split into two sections. I'll tell you this: principle and practice. Because unfortunately, with a lot of information, there's not enough practicality. So I've made sure that there's theory and then there's practice. And like I said, you ain't gotta buy this book, bro. I remember when I couldn't afford books, I used to pirate that shit. I know the game. I know the game. I'll just be more happy that I've got the book out there. You know what I mean? And now it's circulating for people to read. That's more important to me than getting paid. So do what you gotta do, man.
Can't wait for you to walk into Waterstones and sign some books.
Them ones.
Yeah.
Book signing and that.
Good time for a day in the life. Wink, wink.
I'm never doing a day in the life. Never.
I tried, guys. I tried.
Listen, this channel is just for information only. It ain't about me. It ain't about my personal life. It's not about any of that.
I'll create a Nero Vlogs channel.
Let it go, bro. Cool. Next one. Greed. How greedy? Greed in the esoteric can be conceptualized as excessive desire or excessive getting. Understand something very simply. You can't catch two rabbits. The man that chases two rabbits catches neither. You can't sit in two chairs at once. You can't sleep in two beds at once. You can either, so long as you are in a state of excessively getting, you aren't in a state of excessively having. I'll pay very close attention to this because I see this all the time. Growing up in the ends or the hood or whatever you want to call it, everybody's just on a grind. Everybody just wants to grind. We're so used to taking action, and there's this hyperfixation on action, which, bear in mind, action is important, but right action, which means right frequency first, and more often than not, when people are grinding, they're in the wrong frequency of poverty, attempting to take action to get rich. Frequency is ultimately what creates reality. You can't outrun your frequency. Somebody's in a frequency of being in toxic, terrible relationships or hating the other gender, and then they attempt to take action to get into a relationship and a loving relationship. You can't outrun your frequency. Understand very closely. You are either in a state of getting, and to get is to want. You are either in a state of wanting or having, or wanting or having. Now, as I said, there's two chairs in the universe and you can't sit in both. You can either be in a state of wanting or having. Bear in mind, remember the annoying law of the universe, you can only have what you already have. Anything you want, you do not have. But remember, the universe's definition of having isn't the human's definition of having it physically. The universe's definition of having is whatever frequency that you're declaring, your vibratory alignment, whatever you're vibrationally aligned to is what you are declaring that you have. And you can only have what you already have. So anything that you are in a state of having, you have. So it's funny because when we conceptualize greed, we only think of greed in terms of the individuals who have more than enough and they just want more and more and more. But ironically, the desire to want more internally is an indication that you have less, which I know it's funny, but remember, you can only have what you already have. Remember that if you can write down that simple law, you can only have what you already have. You can only have what you already have. Anything that you want, you must shift to having. Anything you want, you must shift to having. Anything you want, you must shift to having. So if you want to have a particular partner, you must have that partner. If you want more money, you must have more money. If you want more clients in your business, you must have that already. Because it's funny, and I know this is an interesting idea to wrap your head around, but it's possible to be greedy without even having what it is that you desire. Because ironically, it's the greed for that thing that ends up repelling your ability to get that thing because you want more and more and more, which is an indication that you have less and less and less. And you need to be at a point where greed is an indication of a particular degree of external dissatisfaction, but you need to be internally satisfied to be externally satisfied. Because so long as you're dissatisfied internally, at some point, it has to express itself and you will be dissatisfied, which means that your reality will end up expressing itself maybe through a way of you losing things. And we see it all the time. We see these greedy individuals who want more and more and more, and things end up going wrong eventually. And it's because you can't outrun the frequency that you operate. You need to shift from being in a state of thinking, I need to get this, to I have this. And when you have this, then you will no longer be dissatisfied. And when you're no longer dissatisfied internally and you arrive at a point of satisfaction, that will be expressed in your reality. I think greed is like the trickiest one to understand. Does that make sense to you, AJ?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Bear in mind, guys, all the sins that we're talking about right now, this is in relation to how I define manifestation, which is internally shifting to a degree to which you're no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. By already having what is that you desire before the world proves it to you, because the world will never prove anything other than you are. So this is in relation to that. Of course, there's the physical, plain explanations on pride, you know, greed and all of those things, but you're already aware of them, I would assume. And if not, you can be aware of them quite simply. But we have understandings for these things already. But when you look at it through an esoteric frame in relation to your ability to materialize your desired reality, it can highlight aspects of you that is misaligning yourself from the infinite intelligence, which indirectly means misaligning yourself from your ability to materialize your desired reality. What are you smiling at, bro?
Someone said Nero's videos has opened my mind in crazy ways.
What's crazy about that? What color should I use?
I smoked you, you smoked me. Apparently we missed a pause there.
The next one, gluttony. How gluttonous. Gluttony in the, what are you looking at? What's
Nah,
that?
just parking in it. Nah, this is just parking.
Say less. I thought you had something else to say. In the esoteric, pardon?
Do you want me to have something else to say?
Okay. In the esoteric, gluttony can be understood as an unconscious void. Anytime that one is in a state of gluttony, they're attempting to use something external to fill it. Typically, it's associated with food, but gluttony can be extrapolated to a multitude of different things. It could be people, it could be food, it could be money. You're attempting to fill a void that you are unconscious of internally. And unfortunately, so long as you attempt to fill an internal void externally, it will not work. Nothing internally can ever be solved by anything externally. I repeat, nothing internally can ever be solved by something externally. And this is why addictions begin to be formed, because, and I've got a video on addiction, go watch it, because the illusion is that the addiction itself presents this idea or the illusion that it can solve something internally. It can fill something internally, even though it's external. No, the only thing that can fill a void internally is something internally. And this comes through an understanding that until you become aware of whatever it is that you desire, think about what it is that you desire. It may be a person, it may be a certain amount of money, it may be this, it may be that. If the absence of that thing is creating a void within, you can only have what you already have. So that void within is going to be expressed externally. Now, like I said, you need to come aware of, one, is my desire attempting to fill a void? Is my desire attempting to fill a void? And if my desire is attempting to fill a void, then understand even the attainment of that desire isn't going to fill that void. This is why we see extremely wealthy people still be depressed and not happy in the state that they want. Like even me, every time I complete a goal, I have this empty feeling after. And it's because the illusion that we present ourselves is that something externally can fill a void internally. And the truth of the matter is it can't. Nothing will. You think when you get to this point, then you'll feel like this. You think when you get to this point, it'll feel like this. Chances are you won't. Because once again, to repeat, an internal void cannot be filled externally. The only way to get rid of gluttony is to internally fill your own void. And the only way you can do that is by coming to the recognition of what that void is and then understanding its energetic polarity. Energetic void's polarity. Then internally cultivating an experience that creates the feeling or the frequency you want in your desires. The only reason you want your desires, the only reason you want that desired reality is because you're going to feel differently. Feeling differently is a frequency. Feeling differently is a frequency. Feeling differently is a frequency. You don't want the amount of money you want. You don't want that person. You don't want that promotion in your business. You don't want that career. You want how you think you'll feel upon attaining it. I repeat, you want how you think you'll feel, the mental and emotional state you will be upon attaining it. And coming to that understanding is that until you can feel in that mental and emotional state or that frequency before experiencing it, you won't get there. What you think is a destination is actually the starting location to get to the destination. Everything that you think you'd think, feel upon attaining what it is that you're attempting to materialize in your reality is what you need to experience now, because that will lead to the void internally being filled. And when that void internally is being filled, there will no longer be an absence. And when there's no longer an absence, you will materialize your desired reality. The issue is the absence that you have within right now, which is causing an internal absence, can only lead to an external absence. But when you have what it is that you want, internally the void is filled, externally the void will also be filled. But that's simply due to the fact that you have internally cultivated an, and when I say an experience, I mean an emotional experience. Go watch my video on subconscious programming to understand that more before you say, how do I do that, Nero? I literally have a whole video on it. I believe we're at the last one, you know?
I thought gluttony and greed were the same thing.
They're two separate things. Greed is excessive getting for the sake of getting, and gluttony is an attempt to fill a void within, but a void that can actually never be filled.
That's dark.
It is very dark.
See what I did there? Void.
I did.
Never filled. Dark void.
Well,
Dark place.
I hope all your holes get filled, did you? Pause. That was crazy. I'm so sorry. That was crazy.
Hope you're proud of yourself with that.
I'm genuinely sorry.
At first I thought you said holes.
No, I said holes.
Yeah. You don't need to say it again.
I'm just making sure. Now, I kind of began explaining the final one in what I just said about you wanting the things you want. The final one, yeah, I think it's fitting if I do it in red, right? Lust. Now, typically in the physical, normally, this is associated with some type of surface level attraction or desire. But when we're talking about lust from a point of esoteric, what we are attributing lust as is a surface level desire. What do I mean by that? This goes back to what I just said. Your desired reality, let's put that in the middle. Your desired reality and you. The only reason you want your desired reality isn't for the desired reality itself, or else you wouldn't want it. You want your desired reality for no other reason than the understanding that upon the attainment of your desired reality, you will either be in a mental or emotional state that you are not currently in. Translation, you will be in a frequency that you're not in. What you want is frequency, not your desire. But to lust after your desire is to have a surface level understanding of why you desire it. Because a surface level understanding of why you desire it will never be enough to create it. Because unfortunately, the only thing that can create is your frequency. Your frequency is a combination of your mental and emotional state. In other words, I've done this in other videos multiple times, your focus, your beliefs, your emotionally charged thoughts, your moods and your attitude and your conviction and your identity, which for simplicity's sake here, I'll just put as your mental and emotional state. So the way that you think and the way that you feel, the combination of those two lead to your frequency. Your frequency is ultimately what you want. You want to experience a frequency that you're currently not feeling. But the irony is, if you think you just want money just because you want money, then you'll never discover the thing that can actually set in motion for you to activate your money. And what I mean by that is this: people have a surface level understanding of what it is that they want. You think you just want those things because you want those things. No, you want the frequency of those things. And the moment you come to the recognition you want the frequency of those things, and the frequency of those things are available to you now, then you can jump into the frequency of these things, which will ironically put you on the path to the materialization of your desired reality. Lust is surface level desire. Until you can find meaning in your desired reality, you will not be able to find emotion. Until you're not able to find emotion, you will not be able to speak the language of God. Until you're not able to speak the language of God, you will not be able to speak the language of the subconscious mind, which means that you will not be able to alter the reality that you're birthing into place. These are the 7 deadly sins. Now, stop misaligning yourself.
One problem, bro.
What?
The mic died.
Are you serious?